Hey everybody, welcome to episode 110 of It's Just Bodybuilding. Myself, Dusty Hanshaw, Scott McNally, and we have a lot of Instagram and YouTube questions for you today. I guess this is our Halloween episode of It's Just Bodybuilding. What's going on, guys?
Just living the dream and looking forward to. We got things to go over. We got shows again to talk about. We have shows.
Yeah, and before we do that, I got to make Scott happy. We got to like, share, subscribe, comment.
Ring the bell.
Nice.
There you go. Dusty delayed that, kind of like when a guy goes up for a slam dunk, but he hesitates for a second just to make the crowd just like hang, and then he slams it. Boom.
Dramatic.
Exactly. I wanted to be my moment, like separate from you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had to separate it. Okay, I totally get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get centered. Scott gives us such a narrow little sliver. It's hard to fit my giant head in. There you go.
You're just a big man. That's all you can do.
So what's going on, Dusty? How has your week been since last episode?
You know, life is stressful. I do whatever I want. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I don't think I'll ever have a great answer for that because it's always, even when it's not good, I'm like, really? This is good. No, it's been very solid, and it's weird. I know that we're closing. It's like the season is starting to close out in bodybuilding, and I feel like it just started because we just had the Arnold, and then we just had the Olympia. It doesn't seem right that now that I'm getting amped for bodybuilding, it's almost over. I think, there are 2 shows left? Like 2 in overseas, I think. That's it, right? I think there's 1 or 2 left, and that's it. We're done with bodybuilding. It's terrible.
But then the Arnold is going to be around the corner.
So what's the first show of the year on the schedule? What's the very first show? Like January 1st turns over the calendar, and then what's the first pro show? I mean, it used to be the Ironman, which I kind of miss.
Yeah.
Which should come back for sure.
And then it was the Flex
lighting.
Pro, right? Yes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the Flex Pro. Yes.
And then it was the same show. They just changed sponsors, and it was a Flex Pro for a while. But, I guess magazines aren't really having shows anymore.
Exactly. I wonder why. It's wild.
Yeah. So I'm excited. So let's dive right in to the topic at hand.
Yes.
This is the first topic on my sheet. We have to address it. So last week, we were asked a casual and innocent question: who is the real giant killer?
Oh yeah.
And based on the information we had at the time and what was going on in bodybuilding, we had a friendly conversation, and we narrowed it down. Obviously, the 2 names that were left, we easily discarded all the other names, and it was Lee Priest and then Shaun Clarida was mentioned, and those were the 2 guys we were talking about. And I mentioned how Lee had beat Ronnie, and Marcus, and Gunter, and we all kind of talked about that. And then now this weekend, Clarida entered the Legion Open, and he won an open show. So how do you feel about the win, and how do you feel about the lineup, and what did you think of the show?
I thought the show was awesome. I think the lineup is deep. The biggest thing that I brought up, I already sent to you guys, was seeing names like Ced and Patrick in a second call out hurt my soul a little bit, but also tells you how good the first call out was. Mm-hmm. So I'm distracted by looking at Shaun from the back here. It's frightening.
It's mind blowing.
It's definitely it's. What's crazy though, as far as just getting to the point for me, I think Shaun may have been better than he was at the Olympia, but he's bigger. You can definitely see he wasn't. You know what I mean? Like he appears to be bigger, but again, that's in the picture by himself. Where I lose it myself is standing between 260-pound, 6-foot tall men. Because and this is what sucks. Anybody who follows our show will be like, "Oh, he doesn't like Shaun." Shaun is actually the only person of those three that I personally know and and hell, I list him as the top person I'd want to train with. Would be Shaun.
Yeah, you did.
But for me, we can't ignore structure, and that's, in my opinion, what's happening. Because if you go back to the Olympia and look at who won the 212 and the Open, structure and size outmassed conditioning. You know what I mean? So then you fast forward a couple of weeks.
Paramount.
Yeah, and now you fast forward a couple of weeks, and now the size gap is way more drastic. I mean, we're talking about almost 100 pounds. And now the conditioning, and don't get me wrong, I mean, his shape, he maximizes his physique. But now we're flip-flopping and saying that's the stuff that matters the most. And that's a little tricky for me because alone, I think Shaun looks the best for sure. But once you put him between those two, I have a hard time letting him beat either one of them. And I do love his physique, but that's just my view because it does seem like you have to have one or the other. Had Shaun won the Olympia and Hadi won the Open Olympia, and then Shaun came and won this, I'd be like, well, yeah, it all
lines up.
What we've been doing. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's sort of a judging inconsistency in a way that you think you're seeing here is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people will say, well, it's a different lineup. It's a different, yes, those things are all true. But in the big roundabout thing, size trumped for sure at the Olympia, and now it flipped. And right. I think that the disparity in size is bigger at this show than it was at the Olympia. Like, I don't feel that Shaun looked small next to Derek.
No, it was just like a shoulder width thing. It didn't even seem like a 50-pound thing. It was like a shoulder width thing.
Yeah. Whereas here, I mean, just pure structure, he looked small next to them. You know what I mean? So it's just an interesting thing. I think it's funny reading the comments. I'd love to see how many people want to cut my head off in this comments of this episode, or how many people love me, because that's what I saw on the IFBB page was, 30% of the people were like, hell yeah, this is what the sport needed. And then the rest of them, they were like, are you fucking kidding me? How does that happen? So what do you guys think when you in that regard?
Well, I think the one thing that sticks out for me in this situation where you're comparing the judging at the Olympia is that Shaun did absolutely outcondition everyone at this show.
For sure.
Like Regan improved from the Olympia, but he still was nowhere near the freak show Shaun was, in like the striations and the crunchiness through the glutes and how tight and full. And, Shaun has so much more density to his physique than any of those guys that he was compared to at this show. Mm-hmm. So I feel like maybe that's the reason that he was able to pull ahead. Like Sergio wasn't Olympia level ready for this show. Like he wasn't as hard as he was at the O. He looked fucking big and full and round, and Regan was improved. And then another thing, if you ignore photos and watch video, Clarida is putting on a masterclass of posing. If you watch the comparisons in video form, he just he looks like everyone else is fidgeting around and breathing through their belly, and like in between poses are like, wiggling around and not flexed. And Clarida's like robotic and fluid at the same time, if that makes sense. He's like mechanically perfect with how he moves and everything. Like if he turns, that glute is locked. If he moves, the hamstring is locked. If he, like everything he does, he wasn't missing a single visible muscle. And what I mean by that is whatever's facing the judges was on. You know what I mean? Whereas other guys were just not nearly the presentation, didn't have nearly the presentation Clarida had. I thought it was like very drastic. Like that final call out with the three of them where they were moving them around. I saw some video where like, it just looked like he was on another level posing wise and presentation wise. So in person, like here we are, bodybuilding is easy when you're looking at photos on Instagram, right? And
Right.
and then you get to the front row of the show and you're like, oh fuck, you know. But I do see your point. Like if Clarida wins this, how come Hadi didn't win the O?
Yeah.
Right. So it kind of begs some questions, you know, like, you know, they say, oh, all shows are going to be judged to the same standard based on who the champion of that division is. That's what it actually says in the rules.
Right.
So like Chris Bumstead is seen because he's the champion. He's seen as the perfect example of classic. So
yeah, he's a standard. Yeah.
he's a standard. You know, Rami is now the perfect example of men's open. That's literally what the rules say. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, but you can't discount again, you know, you can't discount that in-person effect. And maybe that's just what Shaun overwhelmed people with was, like I said, the video I saw, I thought his posing was next level, head and shoulders above everyone else by far. And, you know, obviously the conditioning, fantastic. But I do get what you're saying. The size difference was completely, he either made up for it absolutely in person or it was ignored.
Right.
One of the two.
That's the thing that I look at is when you look at the grand scheme, I think, and this is what's frustrating, I think, for a lot of fans and even for me as a fan is what it allows you to do in anything subjective is pick and choose when you want to use it. You know, because for example, and I don't disagree with you, and I think we've talked about this, Ron, where I placed one year terribly, and I thought looking at pictures, I'm like, God, I should have been third. Then I saw a video, I'm like, I'm lucky I got fifth. Like I was,
right.
You know, I was doing exactly what you're talking about, the breathing and all that. But on the flip, it is funny how they pick and choose because you take somebody like Ronnie, who obviously at his best is the best of all time, but was never a good poser. Then he would come in off and pose terrible, and they were still like, it's enough.
He's so big.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's why it's interesting because it does allow for you to argue and on both sides of it, you know, because I don't disagree, but I think it's funny when I text you guys and Scott, you're the one that kind of pointed that out with Shaun and the 212. I would have been happier with this decision had Shaun won the 212. Like even that, because the disparity, this is my thing. As soon as you said that, Scott, and just so anybody hasn't caught on yet, what he was talking about is, well, then how did Derek win? Derek, although shape is probably the best in the world, in my opinion, he doesn't outmass Shaun like Regan does. And Regan has a very nice shape. So it's not like you're saying, oh, well, he's huge, but it's fucking ugly. So that's
possibly one of the most, possibly one of the prettiest physiques in the entire men's open.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's very interesting standpoint. Like I said, it was a great point by you, Scott, because like that would have helped it make sense. And same thing with the open. So what I would say moving forward is if this is what they like, then please, dear God, stick to it. Because after seeing more video and more review that was better than what we saw on the live stream, I became less and less happy with Rami winning the Olympia. So I would like to see that change go because it is something that the fans complain about. And now, I mean, I have to admit, like, I'm looking and going, man, I would have rather had Brandon or Hadi win the Olympia than him. So, you know, that was an interesting change of perspective. So if they go that route, I just hope they run with it because then I don't mind anymore.
You know, to add to it, I loved seeing him win an open show because
of course.
I think what Clarida should do is he's already won the 212 Olympia. I'm sure he wants to win it back. I get that. He wants to get his title back. But aren't the checks a lot bigger in the open?
That's a good point.
Isn't second place check plays out better than a first place check?
Yeah. So are you? Yeah. So like, you know, how many times do you chase the 212 title if you've already won it? When you know that like third place at the Tampa Pro, if you crack top 3 at the Tampa, you crack top 3 at the, you know, whatever show, the Dallas, you hit these other shows and You crack top 3, maybe win a few of them. I mean, the motherfucker just won this one. Why can't he win another?
It immediately becomes, yeah, I was gonna say, it immediately becomes something you can always do because maybe.
Hey, and also too, think of Shaun's mindset. He just won an open show, so now he is like, I'm gonna win them all.
Yeah, where's the limit?
If you wanted to, where's the limit? Because he doesn't see limits because he's such an incredible example of overcoming, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is gonna make Shaun Clarida extremely dangerous, and it's going to make him realize he can make a lot of money in the open if he wants to. And I would love to see him be the first guy to do both the 212 and the Open Olympia.
That'd be badass.
Right.
That would be fantastic for his career. Like, he would be the first to ever do it, possibly the only to ever do it for a long period of time. Obviously the 212 happens first. Friday they have the 212, right? Like, how does it work? Friday morning is a prejudging for 212.
Do them on the same year though? I don't feel like you can do them on the same.
Has anybody tried?
I'm pretty sure. The reason I'm pretty sure of it is because they don't let figure or say like fitness cross over.
Yeah, I do get that because it's different. They're different sports. I see 212 and bodybuilding as the same sport. So I understand they don't allow crossovers.
Ron would let him ride.
Yeah, but what would you say about then
exemption, special president's exemption?
Ron just wants what he wants because at the same time,
I
don't disagree. But if you look, like, I think Missy could win figure shows all day long.
Sure.
Right.
So that's the question mark. But I do also think, like we discussed off the air, that this does change. A lot of people have a really hard time digesting the idea that Flex Lewis could win an Olympia, and I think that this makes people at least think about it. Like, well,
yeah,
maybe, like,
yeah. It's cool. I'd love to see it happen. I mean, let's say they changed a rule or made an exception, or he was allowed to do both. I would love to see that. He could just like come out for the 212 finals, throw on a different colored trunks, come out for open prejudging. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? Just like fucking just change his number, put his open number.
I feel like they should just ask the competitors, because knowing the guys, no one would say no.
Right.
Like, nobody would say no. Go ahead.
Like, if you say no, that you're basically just admitting that he's going to take your money. So.
And I can't remember. I can't remember if it was here or somewhere else, but the question was brought up. Would the judges, would they let Shaun? Because we didn't know. Was it going to be something where they made a statement and say like, no, you're a 212 guy, 212. Something like that. Yeah. So we got our question answered to that one for sure. Yeah,
because they do that with classic guys at the amateur level all the time. I see that. I've seen that all the time. Like, those be, at the amateur level, you're allowed to enter both. You know what I mean? A lot of the shows.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, well, this guy, the judge will say to himself, this guy has more of a classic shape, so I'm going to put him here. But then he comes out for bodybuilding, and they're like, well, I already put him second in classic.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him fifth in the open now to send a signal to him to stay classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel it kind of goes. But they didn't do this. They didn't do that here. No. So anyways, congrats to Clarida. And I had to laugh. A lot of people remember that little video that Lee Priest sent you last week?
Yes.
Yeah. Where he was like, so I put that on my story, and only like 2 people realized that was Lee's voice.
Yeah. I need to send him. He wanted that clip from last week. He saw that. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can pull it up here or not.
Oh, this is a good question. Who's the real giant killer of all time? Lee Priest? Columbo?
Yeah, me.
Interesting thing. I was doing this personal introspection last night, guys, because you know how Shaun was saying, I'm the real giant killer. Well, we were all joking around, just for everyone. We were all joking around like, I wonder if that's directed at us because of last week's episode, right?
Yeah, you should have tagged us.
Although I find that incredibly unlikely that everyone watched last week's episode. So, but the thing is about the giant killer thing is, the sheer body weight. Like, this was almost 100 pounds. That
Yeah.
was unbelievable. You
That-
know,
that-
I heard
if
reports
that's how
he was
you're gonna look at
175.
it, he's definitely. If that's how you're looking at it, then he's definitely the giant killer compared to everybody else. If we're going on
So
weight
I look-
discrepancy,
I looked up. So just to give Lee Priest some credit, I looked up some stuff on Lee Priest after the episode.
Yeah.
Do you realize he beat Ronnie Coleman 5 times in
shit.
1997?
the year he won the Olympia.
The year before.
No,
he
Yeah.
won it
before he won
in
the Olympia,
98.
Yeah.
So the year before Ronnie won the O, Lee Priest beat him 5 times in 1 year.
Didn't he beat him also at the
Unbelievable.
Olympia that year?
Yeah. Yeah, Lee Priest
Yeah,
was
because
top
Ronnie got
6
like
that
8th
year.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, 9th, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got, I mean, what did Lee weigh? 200 pounds. So, you know, you got to give us a little bit of credit there. You know, but yeah, it's a great question. And obviously it's kind of impossible to compare eras. It's like, who's the greatest bodybuilder? You know, who's better? Phil Heath with 7 Olympias or Lee Haney with 8?
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
like, well,
Yeah.
Phil's physique is better, clearly, you know, but you have to look at other factors, you know. So it's
Technology.
It's a great debate. Yeah. As Ronnie would say, I had the technology. that Arnold didn't have.
You know what is also
And
good for Shaun that I like is the fact that that's probably the best Regan's ever been,
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion. So no one can like throw. You know how people love to throw shade at anything. No one can say, "Wow, everybody was off." Like
Right.
Regan, in my opinion, is the best he's ever been. So
Look good.
Whether or not, you know, the back and forth to make sure no one's got any confusion is, it's great to see him win. And if he's gonna win, I'm glad he beat a lot of really good guys that came in really well. You know, I mean, because we got like what Martin got 4th. Is that right? Who was the top 5? Who got what was? I want to say he got
Shit,
4th.
I lost memory of top 5. I was just so focused on that top 3 call out.
And here come the negative comments. You comment
We don't
below.
care
Comment
about
with your
the comments.
comment below with what you think, guys, about
I have
us.
the top 10 memorized. We got so busy talking.
I can't
about
remember
the top
half their
3.
names. Don't get mad at me. And I can't even spell his last name to look it up. Jesus, I'm a genius. But anyhow, point being is there's a guy who I think is going to be, you know, in the mix at any open show next year. And he's not even on Shaun's radar. So it's nice to see that part of it definitely come through. And I'm with you, Ron. Like, if I had my dream, it's a little different. It's that I assume he has a permanent qualification for the 212 Olympia, just like they do in the Open, since he's won.
Yeah.
So I'd love him to just do Opens all year, cash his checks, then slide back into the 212, cash that check, you know, and move forward, because he definitely has the ability, based on his changes, to become the winningest 212 Olympia of all time.
Do you find I find something that I seem to think, I think it's because I'm older now and I've seen so many people come and go through bodybuilding, and I've seen so many people do bodybuilding right and so many do bodybuilding wrong, that when there's a guy that I know personally and I like the dude and I think he's a great guy, I don't really think about wins. I just keep thinking, I hope he's making lots of money. I hope he's making lots of money. You know what I mean? Because like, you know, there's always like, you know, you got how long are you going to be a good pro for? You know, there's not a lot of Dexters.
Yeah.
You know, most guys,
Right.
it's, you know, 5 to 10 years near the top. And that's kind of the time period. So when I see Shaun doing well like this, I don't even really think like, oh, I hope he wins his title back or anything. I just think like, I hope he sells a fuck ton of those hoodies, and I hope hope he's getting paid, and I hope his checks keep cashing, and maybe he wins. Like, you know what I mean? Because I want to see people, you know, come out of bodybuilding and have it been like, you know, an awesome, like worthwhile, like, you know, these guys are incredible.
Lucrative.
They should be able to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a guy like Shaun Clarida, who's like 1 in 100 million. You know, these guys should be able to retire off what they've done because it's so amazing. You know, anyone who's the best in the world at what they do, or 1 in 100 million, like these freaks, they deserve to retire off this venture, this work they're putting into it. And so, I don't even really think about like what he can win or what I'm just hoping, when this wraps up for him, it's all set, he's fucking set. That's what I'd love to see, so.
No, I definitely like that. Agreed.
Anyways. Okay. What do we do? Oh yeah, I got to ask Scott, you're back in the States now.
Yep.
You didn't claim refugee status and stay in Canada.
No, unfortunately.
Too much.
I did. I got back, and then the next morning
couldn't bring my gun.
I went straight to the range. I did next morning, and I was rusty too. I was like, man, I used to be faster at this. I used to be a little bit more accurate. It'll come back.
He's telling has-been stories to himself.
Right.
He's like, you remember when you were
for
better?
a week.
I do.
It was good. Yeah, it's good though, but. Yeah, now we got to, now it's just a waiting game. I think that the border opens up for Canadians to be able to come into the U.S. in November. So I think that we'll be able to hopefully put all this behind us soon, and we'll be able to get back on track with our normal. Because before the pandemic, I would go there for 2 weeks, and then she'd come here for 2 months because she could, she's working on her PhD, so she can work from home. She's part of University of British Columbia, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Ron. Dude, that campus is so beautiful. Like Vancouver is such a beautiful place.
It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
It really is.
Always listed. Top 5 most beautiful places to live in the world is Vancouver is always on the list.
Yeah, I love it there, man.
It's rare that you get mountains and beach in the same. Like you can stand in one spot and look at the beach and then turn your head and look at the mountains.
Yes.
So, that's not common, right?
We went to Whistler last time I was up there. And the mountains literally, Dusty, they go right into the ocean. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's just so pretty. It's so pretty. But so I'm back and just back in business in the studio now, finally.
It's proper. Killing paper shit and in its proper look. Have you hit your gym yet?
Dude, not yet. I tried to train like the very next day I got back, which is 3 days ago now. So yesterday I tried to train and it just wasn't there yet. Like my hydration was off. So I did cardio and I said, all right, today is the day. So I've got a couple meals in me. We're recording It's Just Bodybuilding. The gym is right outside my door. It's going to be a leg day. So
I love it.
So let's hit some questions. What do you want to start with the YouTube ones? We want to reward these YouTube questions.
All right.
Make them a priority.
Welcome to our channel, new sponsor for our Canadian followers, supplementsource.ca. Known for the best prices, this online supplement retailer has been around since '95, offering blowouts on top name supplements that are overstocked, short dated, or have gone through a label change. Plus, you can get great prices on all their normally stocked supplements as well. They have free shipping over $99 and great discounts on bulk orders. Guys, if you want to support our programming and you're in Canada, you can do so by shopping with our new sponsor, supplementsource.ca. Oh, and while you're up there in Canada, have a butter tart today. It's okay. You deserve it. In fact, it's part of your diet. I said so. I'm a coach. I thought this was great. It was related to Halloween. She had said, if I could find it now, she said, with the Halloween season being here, this is from Lauren Kenworthy, by the way. She says, with Halloween around the corner, if you could only watch one horror film for the rest of your life, what would it be? And instantly I knew. I was like, this is Ron's question. He was born for this.
I don't want to answer these kind of questions. I want to listen to Ron's answer.
Yeah.
That's tough. So horror is a genre that I'm very picky with. Like the traditional slasher movie where you're like, oh no, don't go in the basement. Oh, why didn't you turn the light on? Why haven't you left the house yet? Oh, just go out and get in the car and drive away. Like I have a hard time with those movies, right? Where you're just frustrated. I'm like, no, don't go outside and investigate. Yeah. Why are you investigating the noise? Don't investigate the noise. Just leave. Like, I have a hard time with those types of horror movies. I have friends who are really into like classic slasher movies, and they're like Friday the 13th fanatics. They know everything about those series and all that stuff. And they're a lot of fun, especially at the time. But when it comes to like horror, I tend to like for me, I still think one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and people forget about it, but it's fucking Alien. if you watch the original Alien with Sigourney Weaver, it's not an action movie. Aliens is an action movie. The second one, they make that an action movie with all the Marines in it. We're all gonna fucking die. Yeah, that's an action movie. But the first one, that's a fucking monster movie on a spaceship. You don't even see the alien until you're like an hour into the show, right? And it's such a well-crafted, edge of your seat, like, what the fuck? Like it's and I remember seeing it when I was a kid and being like, holy shit, that was intense, like right to the end. Fantastic movie. And then I gotta give props. I mean, now it's a little bit slow to watch. It's a bit of a slow burn, but it's still enjoyable. And the acting is absolutely spectacular. The original Shining. It is Jack Nicholson at his fucking best. And what's the name of the actress in it? Shelley something. I can't remember. Is it Shelley Duvall? I have to find out.
I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, Shelley Duvall. Okay. So when you watch The Shining,
I don't know.
Shit.
I have to look it up. I still didn't know.
I have to say it out loud.
So Stanley Kubrick directed that movie, right? That was
one of his best.
Kubrick's like one of his masterpieces. And Stanley Kubrick tormented Shelley Duvall so much that she was literally losing her mind while they were filming the show. Like so some of the tension in her character is like she was literally hating being on set. Like she couldn't wait to get that movie wrapped. And it comes out in her acting. And it's like, it's kind of how Kubrick worked. Like Kubrick used to do shit to people to get them to be more like their character or whatever he felt he needed to do. Like he didn't mind if you hated him, if it got the character that he wanted and the tension that he wanted. And Jack Nicholson in that movie is just nuts. But if you watch the original Shining, that's the creepiest fucking movie still to this day. Super fucking creepy. And a great horror movie classic. So I know I'm going old school with those two. You know, that's like fucking 79 and 82 or something. I can't remember what years.
90% of our listeners have no idea what you're talking about, but that's okay. They're like, wait, what?
I know.
What happened?
I know everyone's into like the Saws and all that. You know, the original Saw was a classic too. The first Saw before they were all.
You know, I was going to ask you about the Saw, because that's my favorite. But I was going to ask if you considered that a horror movie or a suspense movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess
that would have been my answer, but I was like, I don't even know if that counts.
Yeah, it's a horror movie. It's one of those, you know, a little bit more like, you know, overtly in your face. Like, here's the violence, you know?
Right.
Whereas like, you know, the kind of like when I was talking about Alien, there's a lot of like, you know, threat of death that you're like, you know, you don't, like I said, you don't see the alien for like over an hour.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. So yeah, it just depends on what you're into, but that's, I guess that's my short answer. If you just want the quick one.
What I love is that young people watching this also don't realize that an hour into a movie back then meant the movie was almost over.
Yeah.
Right. Because now movies being 2 and 3 hours is totally normal.
You said that Saw was your favorite, Dusty?
Oh yeah. I saw that in theater off of like, it was Ron and I think talked about this on the show before. It was like a suggestion of like one of my most prissy, down home, good people friends that was like, oh, go see Saw. And like during the movie, I was like, this bitch is fucked up.
Yeah.
I can't believe that she's this fucked up. I love her.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the very end of Saw. You remember the very end, right? Mm-hmm. The guy's on the floor. Yeah. So I remember being angry at myself that I didn't see the end of that movie coming. I was like, are you fucking joking? They fucking got me. I can't believe they got me like that. Like, I thought it was brilliant because I feel like I can see certain things coming sometimes, and I just fucking didn't see it, man. I just didn't see it. Here, I just pulled this up. Kubrick was intentionally isolated Shelley Duvall, and she was on set, and she was forced to perform the exhausting baseball bat scene. There's a scene where she has a baseball bat, and she's she's backing up, and Jack Nicholson is walking towards her, and he's like obviously completely psychotic at this point.
Yeah.
And she's scared. She's like scared out of her fucking mind, and she's got a baseball bat in her hand. And she was forced to perform that scene 127 times.
Holy crap.
To get it right. Afterwards, Duvall presented Stanley Kubrick with clumps of her hair that had fallen out due to the extreme stress of being on set. And in an interview with Roger Ebert, she said making the film was almost completely unbearable.
Holy crap.
And that's how you get that performance out of her. Because she was scared for her she was so scared in that movie. It's so real. It's crazy.
I think that they would probably cancel Kubrick nowadays if you were to hear about like that couldn't happen today. You know what I mean?
He's probably calling her a lazy bitch between takes.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. We got a bodybuilding one from Eric. He says, what are your thoughts on pre-workout nutrition, supplements, etc. around working out at 4 a.m.? Only time in my day to get it done with 6 kids. So it is what it is, but would like to optimize what I can. Been told to eat a high carb meal before going to bed, which is usually 10:30 p.m.
So I would definitely eat a decent sized meal before bed. I wouldn't have like just a shake.
How are we ignoring the lessons?
Yes, I have TV and know what causes that. What is
That's a reference to 6 children.
Oh,
yeah. Because the last time I was like, do you not have a TV? I'm like, how are we ignoring the greatest part of this conversation?
Oh, that's so funny.
I missed that too.
6
I didn't
kids.
get it.
Oh, that's so funny. So I would say you got to have a big meal before bed. You can't just have so many people just eat a little bit of protein before bed or something. You can't worry about that. You have to make sure you've got some fuel in you. And then the main thing with getting up early to train is hydration.
Yeah,
because we usually lose. We pee and sweat and respire a lot of moisture out of our bodies, and so immediately upon waking up, I would drink like a liter of water with, say, like 30 grams of protein and maybe 30 grams of carbs in it, something light that'll get into your system, and some salt. I would put some salt, some carbs, and some protein in like a liter of water, and I would get that in my system immediately upon waking up, like, half down before you're even in the shower or whatever, and like half down on your way to the gym, like get it in you. And I think you'll be able to train. Hydration is the number one thing. It trumps food. It trumps sleep. It trumps everything. If you're not hydrated, you can't do shit. And if you are hydrated, you can perform surprisingly well, no matter what. So
I think you nailed it, because that's what I used to do. When I trained early in the morning, I didn't eat because I always felt heavy. I wasn't going to wake up at 3 in the morning to get to the gym at 4. So I did the same thing, a heavy meal at night, and it was literally just a liter of water with 20 grams of EAAs. Slam the whole thing right then and there. Then at the gym, I'd be sipping on another liter with more EAAs, salt again, of course, and good to go. So I agree with you 1,000,000%. The hydration is the biggest key, man. Especially if you're good at hydration, and it's funny because I just did this. I'm always super hydrated, and then this weekend I had just a concert on a Friday night, and then woke up ass crack of dawn to drive to a show on Saturday. And even by Sunday, I never really caught back up.
Yep.
And had to make the decision at the gym, like, okay, today we're not going to hurt ourselves.
Yep.
Because I'm still dehydrated after these last 2 days.
That's exactly, you asked me about training.
How you felt.
Yeah. My hydration was down. That's the biggest change. That's the biggest single thing. Like a guy asked me the other day, he's like, hey man, all my workouts have been good. And he's like, and then I had a really shitty workout yesterday. Why is that? And I was like, well, the first thing I ask myself is, where's my hydration? Because that'll change things instantly, right?
Yep, for sure. So yeah, that's the easy stuff. And good thing you got a good TV now, buddy. 6 is enough.
All right. So Brody says he's asking us, do you carry a waist bag or crossover bag? He says, we know that Scott does with his piece, LOL. But does Ron or Dusty have a bag? Does he mean like a fanny pack? Is that what he's saying?
I think he's talking like a fanny pack or a man purse.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I know Dusty does the Dusty does the
I do the man
doesn't
purse all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that will easily hold weapons as well. So yeah, you're good to go there. And then actually, my completely separate but the same question. My truck actually came, because I live in the United States and the truck's made in Texas, with a gun safe inside of it.
Nice, I like that.
Which I think is awesome, but I also think anybody who has a brain knows you don't leave your gun in the car; you bring it with you.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's funny because we had a big again this weekend when I was out of town. There was an hour or an hour and a half wait at a restaurant we went to after prejudging, and I, of course, jokingly, I was like, "Well, what's a name that has a reservation? Because I can be an Eddie, a Sam, hell, I'll be a Samantha if that gets this shit done." And the girl laughed and she goes, "Let me see what we can do." And she sat us immediately. And my buddy goes, "How did you do that?" Said, "You know what happened to Dave Chappelle? She didn't want to get canceled. A man with a purse. She sat my ass down."
That's funny.
She's like, I don't even know what this guy considers himself. He's got a purse.
Right.
Get him.
I don't want to be involved.
Shit.
I don't want to be involved. That's funny.
What about you, Ron?
Funny. No, I mean, I was on the original OG fanny pack team back in the 90s. I just carry a wallet and my keys now. Yeah. Okay. Just no bag.
Is it a dad wallet or is it an actual wallet? Like a credit card wallet?
I like a 3-fold wallet.
Yes.
That's a fucking dad wallet. Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I still made those.
Oh, yeah.
It's I like
a 3-fold.
You never forget it. It's like he has a brick in his
pocket.
Folds.
Two-fold. The 2-fold wallets. Weak. It has to fold 3 times. You need a 3-fold. Yeah. I want to know it's in my pocket at all times, right? I want to feel it. I want at any point in time, I want to go, do I have my wallet? And instantly just feel it pressed against my body.
You know it's there.
Oh, yeah. I don't need to check. That's what I want.
He's got, it's like having an old Nokia phone. It's so big. I mean, damn.
I got one more for you guys, and this is
especially when it's full of hundreds.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know about that.
Okay, Alan asked us, do you guys think that Jake Wood played a role for conditioning in the Olympia this year? Meaning conditioning not being as awarded as previous years.
No.
I don't know. I can't see. I can't see,
No, they don't care. That's the one thing I love about. There's plenty that I dislike about the judging in the IFBB and even on how it's run. I think it's a train wreck in a lot of ways. But they don't bow to anyone and adjust for anyone. That's the one thing I definitely love about it. The way I would say that conditioning was affected at the Olympia was the god-awful stage with all the fucking lights and the shit show behind them.
Brutal.
Go back to a black screen, please.
Nonsense. Yeah.
Right. That's it. That's the only, because I will say too, from seeing guys' pictures, just unedited cell phone pictures sent to me, every single guy on that stage was in better shape than you think. You just couldn't tell it. I mean, and if you guys ever question the validity of what I'm saying, do me a favor, do your progress pictures in front of a white wall, then do it in front of a black sheet.
With
Same
good
day.
lights.
I promise you the black sheet will be better.
Do it in front of a white wall with a bunch of strobe lights going off to the side.
And TVs behind
Go
you.
to a nightclub that for some reason has white walls, which is weird.
Yeah. Like it's just...
I do feel like that was the only way that the conditioning was altered, was because I felt like we forgot that the fans come to the show to see the freaks, and we wanted to make it a concert. I went to a concert over the weekend, and I'm all about the lights then. I don't need to see this fucking guy. He looks terrible, probably. But
if they really, 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 really need to do something, they could fire it all up during the pose down.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, when it no longer matters.
Okay, we're gonna do a 5-minute pose down for the fans and everyone on the live stream, and they can fucking set off pyro and fucking do whatever they want. They could have, like Slash come out on a fucking stand and play guitar in the background. They could have like fucking whatever they want. Right. I'm just thinking, but I just think like the distractions need to be brought down to a fucking zero while they're judging while they're doing the show. Like, I don't get it.
I'm picturing Ron running the Olympia now. We've got Shaun Clarida crossing over, Slash over here.
Can we put a stripper pole in then, Ron? Do I get to like throw in suggestions or?
Well, guys, you're not listening. Slash is playing guitar. He comes with strippers.
Yes. I knew I loved that guy. Who's gonna like?
I think wherever he goes, there's a stripper pole wherever he goes. I think. Yeah. So.
All right, good. The Olympia's gonna be great next year.
Yes. Here, let's. I like this question because how it sets up an answer. Because it's an answer generally, but the question sort of reflects off. We were talking about Clarida earlier. Where are so many coaches and athletes going wrong when Matt Jansen is able to peak everyone perfectly? That's the question. And I think, well, you can start with you guys. You guys go. I have an answer ready though.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start with my position on the people he's peaking correctly is he's not afraid to grind them old school hard. I don't know I don't know if it's the athletes that have pushed the coaches or the coaches that have decided that they want to sell this easier route. But I know that Matt is old school. I know who he learned from. I know who he hired, including Aceto, to learn the ropes. And he is not afraid to put you on 1,500 calories for extended periods of time to get in shape. He's not afraid of that. And when you get peeled out of your mind, and I know, Ron, you can attest to this, those last couple days, you don't have to do much when you're already ready. It's when you're kind of there and you start fucking swinging for the fences and doing weird shit that you've got a problem. So that's the positive standpoint. The flip to that coin is, there's two flips to that coin. Number one, the athlete has to have the balls to do it. And he has a bunch of athletes that do. He also has a lot of athletes that don't, that you never hear about. I think that's the only tricky point with all of the gurus of the game is they have a ton of clients, and you see their top three over and over and over again. And I think we forget, and this isn't a shot on anybody because this is just the way it is, but he just had a question of why are all the other coaches missing? Then why was Ian with Jansen before and left to go to Patrick and is doing better and is coming in better shape?
That's a good point.
Right. What about you, Scott?
Man, I don't have too much more to really add to that. I guess, the guys we are talking about, they are incredible bodybuilders, and I think that a lot of people could probably do a really good job with them. I have found that the better genetics somebody has, the more praise, like out of my athletes that I've worked with, the better genetics someone has, the more praise I get for getting them in shape and the least work I have to do with them. So there is an element of who you're working with. I think when you take a guy who's had a tough time, like remember Luke had a tough time getting in shape. And I remember we all went to the Arnold, see his first Arnold, and I think he took 8th and he didn't look that good. And then he didn't come back the next year, but the year after that, he was there again and he took 3rd. And that's when I think the world really looked at him like, oh shit, this guy's going to be somebody. This guy's going to be dangerous. I can't remember if Aceto was working with him at that time. I thought he was. Yeah. I'm most impressed when you see a guy who's struggled and then he finds a coach that actually gets him there. To see a guy who's just like really good, I'm still impressed by it. Don't get me wrong. Like, seeing the guys up there just looking freaking peeled at this Olympia, it's like all of them I'm blown away by, but I'm even more impressed by a guy who has that potential. But even like Rami last year, like Chad brought Rami in and was like, we got to see a Rami that we had never seen before, that we always had wanted to see. It was like, oh man, this is so much better. This is so much more the Rami we've wanted to see. I'm impressed by that. So I think there are a lot of coaches that are doing a good job. I don't know. I guess I just don't want to knock anybody else because I think every situation is completely unique. And I've worked with some people that could have done really well, but you know what? Maybe they didn't want to diet hard enough, you know? Maybe they just couldn't stick to the plan. And at the end of the day, I'm still putting them on stage, and they could have maybe gotten a few places better if they had really buckled down, but they didn't. And my name is still on that, you know? And then I've had the guys that absolutely just kill it, you know? So it's like, it's hard to say. Each situation is so, you know, individual.
Yeah, I think that,
guys, like you were saying, that if that's the case, if we only look at guys' best guys, then why are we not begging Ian to train us? Because Bumstead nails it every time. And
he sure does.
Another human every year. You see what I'm saying? Like, so when you factor that way, I think that's the dangerous part, is when you start, you're looking at the highlight reels, and that's how some of these coaches, and again, like you said, my point is not to take away from Matt, but to remind people that there are plenty of coaches that are actually doing the same thing. Because how did Ian come in at the Olympia? Okay, how did James come in? There, you know what I mean? Yeah. Shit happens. And I think when you're training enough people, you get that. And when you have somebody like a Shaun who came in with Jansen and they've learned together, there's a trust there also that makes it beautiful. Yeah. Because you know, Shaun will do anything that Matt says, and he will respond even better than he would have, because he literally trusts it wholeheartedly, no question. We're going to be fine. And that is another thing that's a game changer. I mean, how many times have you guys coached somebody and you have to say, you got to trust me? Yeah. Because you can feel them slipping away, and you're like, I'm telling you, if you trust me, this works well. If you don't, we fall apart. Even if you do it, it doesn't work as well if you're questioning it up here the entire time. And if they do, that bond afterward, that's where you get a Shaun Clarida and Matt Jansen combo, is after you've achieved that, you know? For sure. What do you think, Ron?
I think it goes back to what you said, Dusty. I mean, all those factors, you know, there's going to be these magic combos that occur, you know, Neil Hill and Flex Lewis. Yes. You know, I mean, Neil Hill tried to help Branch one year and it didn't go well. Right? It was like the worst Branch ever placed. Branch worked with him one time, didn't go well. That was it. So but it's the relationship with these high level guys, with these coaches, that is if they don't have that trust in that relationship, it's really difficult. But you gotta give Matt credit. He is one of the guys that gets his guys in shape so they don't have to rely on this peaking stuff, you know? Like, how does the question is, you know, how does Jansen peak his athletes so perfectly? Well, he doesn't have to peak them perfectly. They're in shape. Like, he pushes them hard in the prep part of it. You know, this whole waiting for peak week bullshit. I understand peak week is a thing for everybody in some way, even if it's just like mental preparation and posing, fine tuning and stuff. But this reliance on peak week, like it's some sort of magic. I still can't believe it's going on. This like, oh yeah, you know, I talked to my coach and next week we're going to do this with my water and this with my salt and this with my carbs. And we're going to do 3 days of this and then 2 days of that. And I'm like, how do you know what you're doing next week now? Yeah. How the fuck do you know what you're doing next week? Like, what if you look great? You're still going to change these things? You know, what if you make these changes and you start to look worse? Are you still going to keep doing them? Like, it's this sort of expectation that there's some sort of process in the final week that polishes you. I guarantee Clarida looked fucking crazy 3 weeks out.
And 2 weeks out, and 1 week out,
and 2 weeks out, and 1 week out, and he probably looked, and the change in his physique from Wednesday to Friday was probably just subtle. Yeah. And just, oh, yeah, the glutes are a little tighter. Oh, okay, you're a little drier, a little crisper. There we go. Now you're ready. It's like a very, very gradual, you know, the work is all done. You got to do the work early. Like I heard some guy the other day, he goes, yeah, you know, I'm going to come in at 192. So, I mean, I'm already 197. So I'm like really ahead. So I'm going to like, you know, back off this week and I've got like 6 weeks and I'm like, but you're not hard yet. Like, how do you know your stage weight when you're not hard yet? Like, you don't look ready. There's no body parts on you that are grainy. You only got a few striated body parts. why do you think you're going to be 192? Where did you pick that number from? There's just so many mistakes people make thinking that they know where they're going to arrive.
Yeah.
You know,
I had that run this weekend, and I didn't say anything about it because it didn't matter. But a lot of my clients share everything we do, which I don't give a shit. It's not a secret. They post their diet, they post what's going on. And one of my guys, and I'm not quoting exact numbers, but he's like, weighed in at 202. I'll probably be 209 or so on stage when I start eating. And I'm like, no, you won't.
Where do you get that from?
Like, I read that and I was like, I'm thinking closer to 199, 198. Like, it was just like I read it and I kind of smiled. I'm like, God, I hope not. If that fucking happens, we're screwed.
Yeah, because if you're not ready at 202, you'll look like complete dog shit at 209.
Yeah, so it was funny. It was one of those funny things. And for those who are questioning the 202 weight, it was a guy who he wanted to win his first overall. So I brought him in where he looked best. And I didn't care that it was 202 pounds because he was going to be better at 202 than he was at 198. And he did not win. He lost to the heavyweight, but he would have lost to the heavyweight at 198 also. So I remind people that sometimes when they see those numbers, like, oh, why didn't you peel him down? I've had clients win a heavyweight and an overall at 199 before. Like,
yeah,
I'm not somebody who pushes you down 4 pounds, especially we're not going to use any diuretics. So pulling him down and getting him back was not going to be pretty. But yeah, I read that and just laughed. I'm like, you're not gaining 7 pounds by tomorrow. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. People don't realize how much 7 pounds of carving up is.
It's a lot.
You know, I mean, a liter of water is 2.2 pounds. So just think of 3 liters of water. That's a lot of volume. You're going to put all that on and not look, and you're going to, like, none of it's going to go anywhere bad.
So, you know, you'll love this, Ron. This is a prime example. I had I'm guessing on the weigh-in weight, but at the first USA's I did, I weighed in around 246 or so, okay? And I stepped on stage, or I woke up the morning of prejudging at like 238. Then I woke up the day of finals the following day at like 231. Damn. Like, it just kept going, but I looked better and better and better. And no one would have ever imagined I had dropped like 10, 15 pounds between weighing in and finals. But once it starts going, it just keeps going. And I got better and bigger and fuller. I was definitely better by the second day. But it's just funny how people think, well, I'm going to eat and I'm going to get heavy. I'm like, shit, man, I was just watching the weight just keep going down, but I just kept getting better, so I never gave a shit.
Right.
We got that was a solid question though.
Okay. You got one?
I have tons. You know how this works. I wanted to see if I have a really good one.
Dusty gets a lot of questions. I've seen Dusty's scroll.
Yeah, I have too. It's a lot.
It's pretty good.
That's
pretty good.
You know what's funny is even when I go back and answer these, then I've had, like I told you, I've had people get mad at me for not answering their question. I'm like, you can only answer, I think it's 40 or 50 before they start erasing the first one.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
So I have to like skip through them and guess. No.
We did get a lot of like last 5-minute crew comments. So shout out to everybody who commented on the last show. All that stuff helps to boost the show in the algorithm.
Oh,
yeah, I appreciate that.
This is a good one, actually. So Doc says they have too much protein in the urine. Kidneys are out of range, but I'm a natty lifter. Any sups to help or advice?
If he's natty, I don't really have much to add. I mean, Dante would tell him to get some astragalus and get on some of the, get some cranberry extract and some astragalus and some this and that probably to work on those kidney numbers. But being natty and having your kidney numbers off is something I would definitely look at, correcting as soon as possible, obviously. That's pretty rare that you see that. So, I mean, it's different if he's like, I just finished, a huge cycle with a whole bunch of tren,
Right.
But when they're natty, I feel like the answer is not obvious, you know. So, you know, I don't know what you do. You know, examine your, you know, what you're putting in your body, you know, how you're you're hydrated, all that sort of stuff. But other than that, you gotta do some reading for sure.
I'd say too.
The only thing that I was going to say was the hydration.
Yeah.
I always worry about hydration numbers when someone brings up that and again, there's obviously predisposition, but assuming that that's not the case, the first thing I look at is hydration. I don't think most people realize that there should never be a point in your life that you're thirsty. If you're thirsty, you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
So a lot of people too, they schedule their blood work for 8 a.m. because they got to fast for their blood glucose and all that, right? And they don't hydrate before they get their blood work done. So they get back this perfect blood work, except they got some kidney values that are all messed up.
Yeah.
And if they would have, put down 2 liters of fluid and gone in later in the day, they might have had a different reading. So that's something to look at too. Maybe he should just get it checked again at a different time.
That's probably a great point. You nailed and Dante and I he's went over this in depth with me. 3 days don't train.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Absolutely blown out hydrated, ridiculously hydrated when you get done. That's going to give you your accurate numbers. And you're right. Most people, it's funny, but a friend of mine actually sent Dante his numbers one time, and he was like, "Please tell me you were dehydrated." And it was I went to the gym, I did a hot yoga class, then I had it in, and he was like, "Well, I'm surprised your doctor didn't think you were going to die."
Yeah,
because the numbers were so bad.
Yeah, I just ran a marathon, and yeah.
That's a good point, Ryan. I didn't think about that. That's probably. I think you nailed it.
I had a doctor who told me
the biggest issue.
15 years ago, I had a doctor look at my numbers and say, you're gonna die. Your kidneys are basically falling out. This is terrible, and it was somebody who didn't understand being an athlete, I think that, I think if you follow these guys' suggestions, the not training thing, I think that's a good one. And then, the hydration. But I remember being terrified, though, oh my God, I made all these terrible choices in life that have led up to this moment, and now my kidneys are gone, But, yeah.
That's awesome. You do have to love how that works. Your brain immediately is like, what have I done?
Then the nurse came in after, and she was looking at the numbers, and she was like, oh, no, he's just trying to scare you.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
Oh, good shit.
So I have one here.
Shoot.
And I like these questions because I think people overcomplicate stuff. How to improve muscle separation on an already developed physique?
Get leaner.
So think of a guy. Get leaner.
That's my entire answer.
Or
get leaner, get drier, you're good to go.
Also get bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Valid.
If you add, if you have 2 muscles that are next to each other and you make them bigger, the crevice between them gets deeper, right? So if you have 2 small back muscles and then you turn them into 2 huge back muscles, the crack is a lot deeper. So a lot of times it's just, and there's a genetic component to your kind of default separation, some guys have, we lost Dusty.
Again.
Dusty didn't like what I was saying.
He was like, no, it's just get leaner. I don't agree with Ron.
Fuck this guy. I'm out.
There he is. He's getting quick with the callback.
Yeah. There we go.
I didn't like the way you're answering.
All good, Dusty? Yeah, I knew. That's what I said. I said, he's like, fuck this guy.
Bam!
There's a genetic default level for everybody on their kind of base separation in a body part. So let's say it's quads. Some guys can, diet for their first show and get down to say, that you could even standardize the body fat. You could say, this guy's 4% with crazy separation in his quads. And then the other guy diets down and gets to 4% and doesn't have the separation in his quads. And the only thing that guy can do is get his quads bigger and more developed and, train them, get all the muscles in his quads to grow, and the cracks between them will get deeper and stuff. So condition obviously is the first thing, but condition being equal, you just need more muscularity in that area, and your separation and striations and all that will be deeper and more pronounced. So, not everybody's going to have the same separation. Some guys have that crazy pec split. Other guys don't. Some guys have that bicep split when they're like super shredded, and other guys can be, super peeled and they just don't see that split in their bicep. So,
what the example I always use, Ron, is shredded glutes. You ever notice the guys with the most shredded glutes have the biggest ass? I mean, they just have the most tissue.
Yeah.
Think of Ronnie Coleman from the side, just the amount.
Big horse
like
glutes.
Fucking Manitar. Like, yeah. And then same thing with Kai Green. Then you look at Jay Cutler. It's not that Jay wasn't as hard. He doesn't have as much tissue in the glutes. So,
smaller glutes. Dennis Wolf, too. Dennis Wolf had like relatively small glutes compared to his giant quads.
Yep.
And he never had like the most striated glutes, but he was shredded,
Yeah.
So, good point. Okay.
Solid.
Your turn.
Solid. Always good ones here. Oh, no, not that one. I almost did it. Oh, here we go. I like it. I like your guys' opinion on these because I'm so black and white. Do you think there's a synergistic effect on injecting GH with insulin as a pre-workout?
I wouldn't say that. I don't know.
I'm sorry I laugh because when Ron answers bodybuilding questions, I feel like I'm asking myself. He's slightly irritated. I see him like he's trying to be nice because it's being recorded, but he's a little irritated with the question.
Yeah.
Well, let me break this down a little bit. I'm with two guys that you guys, you can say that you were both very successful at building a lot of muscle. Neither of you really, this isn't something that either of you are very like, you didn't have to create a formula for growth hormone and insulin intake and break down the synergy and all of that to get where you were. I think that in itself is kind of an important answer to me, at least.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's evidence there. Yeah, there's evidence there. I find that you get that with a lot of, like I've had that same experience with other high level athletes where I ask them a question, not realizing that it's that type of question, and they just look at me and they're like, "Oh, I never thought about it," and they're like, an NHL player,
right,
and they're like, never crossed my mind, never had anybody mention that. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that doesn't matter at all then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I did the pre-workout insulin off and on where I tried that out to see if it would, maximize my pumps and all that sort of stuff. But as far as GH goes, I never, really messed with timing too much. I just kept it simple. I think that, obviously there's some things where obviously insulin timing matters because you can die. But outside of that, I think timing is like really overemphasized for a lot of things. There's exceptions, but the magic is in the magic is in the stew. Like it doesn't matter if you put the carrots in before the potatoes, they both got to go in. I don't know. I just keep things simple.
I think that the thing that I can say that kind of lines up with what you were mentioning, Scott, is I learned early on when I was tweaking things, training, sleeping, supplements, super supplements, that when I would alter supplements, Sustanon versus, Cypionate or this versus that, nothing really happened.
Yeah.
Nothing like, holy shit. But when I would fuck with training, I was like, oh,
there you go.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
And then it became undeniable. Things like that were like, it was, you could not beat what it did to me. No one would disagree if I showed them, okay, I changed this, and that became shocking. And that's where I kind of lost interest in being overly excited about the supplement side or the drug side, because I was like, man, it really didn't do anything. I used to take all my growth at the same time before bed, and I did go up in doses and down, and the only thing I saw was I spent more money. So I was like, all right, 4 IUs seems to work.
Okay, so 4. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
4 is a good place.
I would take 4 units, and then the other thing is, and I know Ron, I think, is on the same page. So at the biggest of my career, I was never using insulin in the off season. Never, never, never. I would use it to fill up during prep. So, you know, for anybody who followed back in the day, when you saw me eating a muffin and a cheeseburger during prep, I took insulin that day. That's it. One time also. That was it. Before I trained, I would take, 8 units or something. Go train, had the muffin before I went, had a good meal after, and then that was it. So I think a lot of people are looking for the secret in an area that would be easier to, because let's be honest, it'd be a hell of a lot easier if we could just find that perfect mix of insulin and growth before training versus going to war with a logbook for 5 years.
Yeah.
The pictures of your back from the red bandana days to the remember that
pirate earrings,
the pirate back double by, your famous pirate shot. I mean, in reality, like, that had nothing to do with insulin and timing of your, peptide hormones and stuff. It was like, people know what that was. It was your bent rows and your deadlifts and your,
and it was just time on the basics. So we can't ignore the drug side.
Yeah.
Like I had been using drugs longer and I had been training that way longer. That was the big thing. And that's why it's funny how often people go, "Oh, what are your thoughts on this?" And I'm like, "I've never done that." And I swear they must think I'm lying because it's like everything. Like, "Oh, what's your favorite cycle?"
Right.
I'm like, "Well, I started doing this in 2011 and I do it now."
You still get it. We still get it. We had a guy on YouTube recently who was like, I love the show. I just wish that Dusty would be honest about what he takes.
Right. And that's the thing is,
It's
what's
so
funny
funny
about it is, and it's not that it's low, like, I'm not claiming to be like a super low dose person, but it's just, it's literally been the same for forever. When I'm on a heavy cycle, the heaviest the test would ever go is a gram. I went above that before. I saw nothing. I didn't see anything bad either. I just didn't see anything. I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I hate taking shots. I'm lazy." So I can eliminate that. And then, Ron and I have said this openly many times. What is my favorite thing? Give me test, give me EQ. I'm good. See ya.
Yeah, the people ask me why I like tests, because I always say this. I'm like, well, in my brain, I never took Tren off season, ever. Right. That was a contest drug. And it was like the last half of prep drug, right? And then there's all the DHT derivatives, right? You got your Primos, your Masterons, your Winstrals, Anivars, all the DHT stuff. And to me, those were all contest drugs. There would maybe be the occasional time I might use a little bit of like Masteron in an off-season cycle, but very rarely. I would usually just ignore the DHTs in the off-season. Again, I don't know if that was a good idea, but at the time, that's just how it was done. You save your contest drugs for contest time. And so that leaves, what does that leave? That leaves you test, the nandrolone family, which I'm not very good on. That's one of the, the nandrolone family doesn't really work well with me. A little bit of NPP occasionally was okay. And then EQ. And I mean, I don't know, is there a bunch of other options? But on those things, test and EQ, my blood work was always great. I always felt fine. I never really got any noticeable side effects. And I could be well over 300 pounds on those two things. So that's just why I kept it so simple. And then Dianabol. I really like Dianabol. I mean, aside from appetite issues, if you have a hard time eating, that was Dianabol worked for me. Like my body responded to it. And that was pretty much it was kind of it. That's all I really used off season. Throw in a bit of GH if I could afford some, or some good kits if I thought they were decent. And that was pretty much it. And, it really was that simple. And that's why for a long time, I just would get bored whenever people would want to talk about drugs. I would just get bored. Like, that's a boring conversation. Let's talk about movies or something. Like, I don't want to talk about... I don't give a shit about your Primobolan, and I don't care about what you I just don't care about. I don't want to, you know what I mean? That's how I would feel sometimes when people would start micromanaging their cycles and breaking it all down. I'd just be like, I don't know. And then also too, I just want to throw in before you go that the thing I used Primo last cycle, or I used whatever, so I don't want to use it this cycle because it won't work as well.
As if your body remembers.
I'm like, I don't know. I took Advil for a sore shoulder 3 months ago and it worked. And then I took it again for my knee this month and it worked. Like, I'm not afraid of like, I have to switch my drugs up. You know, I don't know. People worry too much, and you know, test is test. Your body doesn't give a rat's ass after the ester's removed. It's all exactly the same as far as I've ever felt. And, you know, so I just kept it so simple that people don't believe me, just like you, Dusty.
But I think, you know, it's funny because I love to fall back on Jordan because he is somebody who has openly said, like, he's blasted drugs in a way I've never.
Michael Jordan said that?
What I love is exactly. Well, I mean, how do you think he got so freaking amazing?
Blasted drugs? I missed that part.
He had to pass the test, but it was fine. He was skinny. It was fine. He will tell people, like, if you're unsure, try it. Because that's my answer to people. If you think that what you're hearing is inaccurate, here's my challenge. Add a couple of these other drugs that you are so sure are going to make a drastic change. Take your pictures, run them for 6-8 weeks, and ask yourself, did my performance drastically change this time compared to the other cycle? Am I drastically bigger now? And when you get the answer is no, you'll realize we're not full of shit. So yeah, I'm not against it. And I do think that's something you should try because, I mean, you know, for example, like you and Ron and I, coincidentally also, I'm the same with DECA product. They don't work well for me. I know guys that do pure DECA cycles because they can keep their appetite through the roof and they crank. And I'm like, man, I'm envious. And opposite of you, Ron, I can't take any orals or my appetite is gone because I already have a shit appetite to begin with. So, you know, I think that's the big takeaway though for people is, you know, you're really searching for a secret. And if you want to know, try it for yourself and you'll realize it doesn't work. I mean, like you said, Scott, you're a guy that invested a bunch of money in growth. What he ended up with was no more money. Yeah. And that was the end of that was the conclusion to his thing is crypto would have been better. Yeah.
Can you even imagine? What did he spend? 20 grand on GH?
Yeah. If you put that in crypto.
And what year? What year was that?
God, that was a while back. I mean, it would have been like
2017.
It would have been like $300 a coin.
God damn,
my brain hurts just thinking about that 20 grand worth of Bitcoin in 2017.
Yeah.
Jesus fuck. Yeah, I know, man.
Where is he now? We don't know. He bought an island.
And yeah.
He's not podcasting.
I got a funny one. I'll just answer it quickly. What is the right dose of D-ball? And my answer is up the dose until you get nosebleeds on the leg press and then lower it a bit.
Then 5 milligrams less.
Good to go. I was going to ask if he was putting it in his eyes or his mouth.
Recommend that. Yeah.
It's all, it really, that's what, I love when I say shit like that because I'm just waiting for someone to be like, it hurt like hell when I put it in my eyes. Fuck. Was totally kidding. Okay, you know what? Here's a question I do want to touch. And I don't have an answer for it because I never had this, but maybe you guys do. Ways to cope with the mental side of the sport, depression and loneliness.
Well, those don't have to be parts of the sport. like you don't like, that's not part of bodybuilding. Like, oh, get ready to be depressed and lonely.
Yeah.
Like I would never, that never crossed my mind that there's other issues there. I mean, if you're depressed and lonely, then do you really enjoy what you're doing? Is it like, why are you like, I enjoyed bodybuilding. I always enjoyed it. I loved going to the gym. That's where I loved, you know, that was kind of, even though I was like, you know, Mr. fucking intense and all that, it was still my social time. You know, like I wouldn't, obviously not while I'm training, I'd have my headphones on and my hat. Like I used to wear my hat like down to here, you know, and I used to train like that. But as soon as the workout was over, I was like, you know, hanging out at the front desk, fucking chatting to people. How's it going, bro? Like walking around the gym, saying hi. Like the gym was always my home and I always loved being there and I loved the people there. And it was always like my social time and kind of, you know, so I never found training was fun.
Yeah.
If I didn't train, I might get depressed. But as long as I was training, I never had like bodybuilding related depression and loneliness. I mean, I mean, I sort of enjoy a certain amount of alone time, but I mean, I also am a social person. I worked in nightclubs for 16 years. So I was never really like, I don't know. I just don't relate to those kind of like things when it comes to bodybuilding, because that was never like a side effect of bodybuilding for me, depression and loneliness, you know? And I would also throw out.
Ooh.
Exactly. I would also throw out that if depression is a problem, it's probably pre-existing and could also be exacerbated by, you know, the way you're using your drugs. And I don't know what they're using, or if they're, you know, I mean, I've heard people say that they take too much Arimidex and get depressed.
Oh yeah. Mess up your estrogen.
They don't realize. I think a lot of people take way too many anti-estrogens.
Yeah.
Like the anti-aromatase drugs. I see people all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I'm using 400 test and an Arimidex every day. I'm like, oh, you're on way too much Arimidex. Like, you know what I mean? And they'll have all these problems, and it's like, yeah, that's part of it. So it could be hormonal, but it could just be a pre-existing issue that they need to deal with.
Do you have anything you want to add to that, Scott? My killers are done with doorbells.
Man, I don't know if I do have too much to add. I do feel like, you know, bodybuilding it's a really extreme sport or extreme hobby, extreme thing, and I think that people who are drawn to it tend to be more extreme. You know, like you get a lot of people like both of you guys had more of a sporting background, and then you'll get someone like me who I was not a very sporting person. I like my coordination sucked in school and stuff. I was not good at sports. And I got into bodybuilding after having gotten into recovery, and I found it to be like a really good mental outlet for me. And I think there's a lot of people like me that get into bodybuilding who, like Ron said, maybe they already had stuff going into it. You know what I mean? Like I could say that, you know, I probably had some stuff going on, you know, especially, you know, decade plus ago, when I was like newer, you know, it's 15 years now, but when I was newer in recovery, that, you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to think like mood stuff in general. And that stuff, like, you know, that would be there whether I was in bodybuilding or not. But I don't know. I guess I just would say I do see people that get involved with bodybuilding because they can relate to it, because it is extreme and they're drawn to that. But I wouldn't say that bodybuilding itself causes that stuff. That was probably you to begin with. And I agree with what you said, man. Like, you know, maybe look at that. Because I think you can have, you know, you could still have friends bodybuilding. Maybe, you know what, I've seen people who are a lot younger who are like, hey, I can't go out with my friends and party anymore. But that, you know what, maybe you're growing up, and because I don't know what this guy's situation is, but it's like maybe he feels alone because all his friends are doing something else, you know. But you'll make new friends if you're new to the sport, you know. Like Ron said, all your friends are there. Man, I loved when I was younger, like hanging out at the gym after I trained, eating my food, talking to everybody, you know. It's like my people, my community. I don't know. I don't feel that way either. But I'm not saying it's wrong that he does, you know, but I definitely look at it, you know.
The only thing I would add that I think some people do, when I hear the word lonely, the only thing that enters my brain that I think a lot of guys do wrongly is, why do you have to stop going to a family event? Why do you have to, like, I like being alone, so that was never a factor for me. But if I liked being with people, I would go be with people and I would bring my food, or I wouldn't eat cake. I don't enjoy eating cake with these people. I think that's a confusing thing. Being with them is what's enjoyable.
Thank you.
Ron, you know this. We've done tours where one of us was dieting, or two of us were dieting, and the other 8 were dead nuts off season, and it was still fun for everybody. You know, and also everyone knew, hey, Ron's in prep, so, you know, he's bringing his food, and we're going to do X, Y, Z. But it didn't stop Ron from interacting and enjoying the company of everybody else. And I feel like that's a mistake people make, where they think, well, I got to become a hermit. Well, if you're not already that, if you're not comfortable being that way, you're going to hate this shit. You know, it's like when people say, oh, I was thinking about quitting my job because I got to get better at bodybuilding. I'm like, much time do you need to bodybuild? I cook all of my chicken in 15 minutes. I cook the rice in 20. I package it up. I'm done in an hour. Okay, and it takes me 11 minutes to eat each meal. Like, you need an entire day? And I train for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what are you going to do with all that time? Like, it just seems like we force ourselves into this being it. Go ahead.
It reminds me of something that really came like as I was bodybuilding. It didn't take too long, but I was only a few shows into my bodybuilding life when I hated the main thing about going to an event, like while you're dieting for a show, was I didn't want to talk about it. Yeah. Like, I don't want to pull my meal out and have everyone at the table turn to me and I want to talk about my bodybuilding for the next 45 minutes.
What you eating there, Ron?
Yeah. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about what I'm eating. Like, I would even, instead of eating out of a Tupperware dish, I remember some events that I went to where I would go in the back, I would heat my food up, and then I would ask someone in the kitchen, like, hey, can I get a plate? And I would put it on a plate.
Oh, yeah.
And I would take it out to the table, and then it seemed more normal, like I was on a plate and everyone else was on a plate, so there'd be less questions. I even remember my one friend got married, and he's like, hey, man, go give your meal to the kitchen guy. He'll bring it out with everyone else's meals, and then because I told him, I'm like, I don't want it to be a big deal. And he's like, no, don't worry. They'll just bring it out with everyone else's meals. No one will even know. And so they brought everyone's plates out and delivered them. And the one cook that I'd already talked to, he came and put my plate in front of me. And no one even said a word because no one noticed.
That's cool.
I loved it. I just don't want to fucking talk about it. Don't worry about my food. I'm here. We're like, you know what I mean?
Hey, Ron, put some butter on that.
Yeah, like I just don't want the conversation. It's just agonizing, And then there'd be sometimes where people would go, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
What is that? Oh, it's 8 ounces of filet with rice and vegetables, and it's cooked perfectly. And so, yeah. Okay. Hey, I've got one here.
Perfect.
How do you go about setting up your macros for cutting after you've just done what might be too much of a dirty bulk?
Ooh.
Scott, you want to start with yours? I'm actually searching for something in the moment.
All right. I'd say, first of all, number one, just switch it all to clean food. Because I think that as each of us being coaches, we've worked with people who come to us and be like, hey, listen, Ron, listen, Dusty, I'm eating like shit right now, bro, like flat out shit. And it'll be like, well, show me what you're eating. No judgment. And then if you just switch it all to like, okay, 8 ounces of chicken, 1 cup of rice, sweet potatoes, whatever. If you switch it all to clean foods, I don't even care what the macros are. Eat until you're full. You know what I mean? Eat until you're full, but eat it all clean. Do that for a week or so. See how things go. I bet you that you tighten up, you drop water, and then from there, that'll kind of give you a little bit of a foundation to work from. And then you might say, okay, now I need to, maybe remove a little bit of carbs out of each of these meals or whatever. Or actually, you know what, I could pull this out and I would still feel exactly the same. You could probably do that for a good 6 weeks, not even be hungry and get tighter, look better, do a little cardio on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. Traditionally, the first week of someone's diet for most people, I actually try to overfeed them with all clean food. Like, I think, okay, well, they're eating approximately this many calories. So I'll just start with that, but all clean food. And almost every time they drop weight anyways.
Yeah.
So, you're kind of like almost hitting the same calories as when they were, eating shit, but their food volume's up, it's all clean. And next thing you know, they're like, oh, I lost 2 pounds my first week. And you're like, yeah, you lost 2 pounds on like 500 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
Because you're not eating there's not all this shit, hidden fats and everything, all the deep fried food and all that's all cut out. The carb macros are actually the same and the protein's actually higher. It's just all the kind of the shit is gone. So sometimes that's the best way to do it. You don't even really have to cut macros at all. You just kind of transition to clean food. And 9 times out of 10, they can hardly eat it all.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the big factors. I don't think most people realize truthfully how overboard they were eating when they were eating whatever. Like, They don't realize that meal they just ate was 2,200 calories. So, like you said, just by I mean, even if you eat screw macros, if you put them on a large amount of food that's clean.
Yeah, just large amount of food.
And then they start moving. They're on their way. And I like to do that. I'll have clients when they come to me. I have them send the diet out the gate, like even if we're starting off season, and I tweak it just a little. But I also know that most people, and this is a fact found, don't follow the diet they send me as good as they think they do. So when I just tweak it a little, but now they're paying me and they're executing, a lot of change happens. And I'll tell them up front, like when I send it, I say, hey, before you freak out when you read this diet, it's very similar to what you sent me. I don't want you to think you paid me to send you back your diet.
Yeah.
Just trust me. I'm having your body talk to me. You know what I mean? And then I make a little tweak, and then it talks to me some more, and a little tweak. I think a lot of people that, like the guy who asked this question, their knee jerk is to go way too low, way too fast.
Yes.
You know, so it's easier to start high and work your way down than it is to bury your calories, screw your metabolism. And I don't mean long term, and I'm not somebody who believes the body is this delicate flower, but you're much better off to ease it down and say, that was a little more food than I should have. Let me go a little further. Because I see people, they'll send me I'm thinking about starting to prep, and they send me their diet. And I'm like, so you went from dead nuts off season to 150 grams of carbs on day one? What?
Right.
Where do you plan on going in the next 16 weeks? So that's a solid question for sure.
Okay.
Do we have another one lined up? Really solid ones. Do we have any more really solid ones?
I've got one that I'm not really an expert on because I've never really had many problems.
You mean in general, like in life, you haven't had many problems?
Yeah, there's no problems. It says, how can bodybuilders keep their gut and digestion in better health? And I just sort of have always just digested all my food pretty good. I haven't had very many problems. I hear people having all these like issues with digestion, and I get people sometimes while they're prepping, they'll message me and go, I haven't shit in 3 days. And I look at their diet and I'm just like, where's all this food going? They're eating, all the normal foods. They're not like, it's not like they're rammed with fiber and starved of carbs and there's no water in their GI or anything like that. There's just no reason that I can see for, they got to like mess around with probiotics. What's the word? Probiotics. I was going to say probiotics, and I was like, it sounds like a robotic term. Probiotics and enzymes and all that sort of stuff. And I've just never really had any gut problems of any kind. But what do you think, Dusty?
You know what? I fall into the same category as you. But I think the first thing that I ask people to do if they think they're having drastic gut problems is do a food allergy test. Because oftentimes it's very common actually. Some staple bodybuilding foods are an issue. I had a guy just barely. I told him to do a food allergy test, and I said, sometimes, man, it's eggs, it's peanut butter, whatever. So he ordered it, and then just knee jerk. The next day he pulled the peanut butter and put almonds in, and then he left it. And in 2 days he goes, never mind, we're good.
Nice, yeah.
So it can be that simple, one little thing. So I do not knee jerk start jamming probiotics and enzymes and all that over the top. I am a believer in enzymes. The only thing that I suggest with something like that is I tell people to start out like 2 or 3 a day with your biggest meals. Just take them and see. But being completely honest, it's never been an issue, and I've never finished a bottle of enzymes in my entire life. So,
right.
Very similar thing. I also think you can't ignore how you feel. It blows my mind how many people, if I eat something, I know, like I have, okay, I just had red sauce and all of a sudden I have acid issues. Okay, red sauce. Don't eat red sauce anymore. Done. Like, right. I don't know why that's difficult for some people, because if you're eating very exact and you pay attention to how you feel all day long, usually the answer is in the question. You're like, oh, so every morning at 8 a.m. you start having stomach cramps? Yeah. And you ate the eggs at 6? Yeah. You didn't wake up at 6 with the problem, did you? No. Okay, so you ate eggs and oatmeal. Which one do you think it is? You know what I mean? Okay, try that one. Didn't work. Okay, flip the other one. Okay, there we go.
Right.
So work backwards.
Right.
It's pretty simple. What do you think, Scott? Do you have anything you would suggest a little more advanced than running our back to basics bullshit?
No, I think that's where to start. And you know what, too? I think that, like if you look at a diet and that there are going to be some foods that are probably going to be, potential culprits, what you said, like pull them out. If you think it, even if you don't know, like, hey, it's somewhere in my diet, we can look at like, okay, well, we've got eggs here, maybe whatever else somebody's eating that could be, maybe beef could be something that could be a little tougher for some people. Oats. I found some people that have issues with oats, some people that have issues with sweet potatoes. So, you just maybe toggle those things out and eliminate one of them, give it a couple days, see how it goes. No change. Maybe add that one back in, pull something else out. I think that's one route to go. But I feel like for me, where I had digestive issues was eating the same thing over and over and over again. Like I developed an egg allergy because I was drinking liquid egg whites like twice a day. Plus I was eating cooked eggs on top of that. And my system could only handle so much before, like it literally just started running right through me. And then I realized, I can't do that anymore. So I feel like I abused the egg whites. You know what I mean?
The simplicity of it was too easy to run with.
Yeah. And I think that like we get in that bodybuilding mentality of like, okay, I'm just going to eat chicken and rice, chicken and rice, chicken and rice. And eventually like you just can't stomach chicken anymore because you've eaten it 10,000 times, cooked the exact same way with the exact same seasoning. So I feel like if we can try to, in the off season, even if you don't want to add variety, add a little bit of variety. I think that helps. That would be where I'd start to, and that when I speak of that, that's like how I would say avoid issues down the road, because down the road we're going to jam a lot of food in your system and something could fail. I will say this too, like Ron, you not having digestive issues, I could speculate that in itself could be like genetics for bodybuilding. Like when we talk about like somebody who has good genetics, right. Hey, I'd say somebody who has great digestion, we could call that a genetic, For
sure. That's on the equalizer. I talk about bodybuilding genetics as being like a stereo equalizer that has like 20 different things you can move.
Yeah.
And we say, well, resistance to injury, that's one.
Yeah.
And ability to build muscle and ability to get, shredded and ability to recover between workouts so you can train more and, all those things, and absorbing food and response to drugs. And then there's also genetics like size of your joints in relation to your muscle bellies. And so there's all these different genetics. And that's why I would always get frustrated when people would say like, Flex Wheeler has the best genetics and Dorian has shitty genetics. I'd be like, you don't understand what you're talking about at all. You know nothing about what just came out of your fucking mouth. Like, you know what I mean? So, it's there's a lot of different ways to have, good bodybuilding genetics. You could just be really resilient in the gym and never get hurt. And then you can just blunt force trauma your way to a physique. You know, Dusty.
Thank you.
But yeah,
you know, so pointed. I had to say thank you.
That was good.
So what's funny? So, there's that run with Branch. I've had people say that like he just has a terrible physique, and I pull up like an early career shot, and I'm like, what part of this is terrible? Because it's flawless.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember. I'll never forget one of my favorite bodybuilding shows I ever saw was I got front row, like very front row ticket to the 2017 Arnold, I think it was, when Dexter beat Branch.
Right.
I think it was 2016 or 17. Anyways, long story short, I had like a shit ticket at the back. I had 2 tickets. And I was going to the show by myself. And I see this dude I know, and we're all talking, and he's like, man, I need a ticket for my wife real bad. And I was like, oh, well, what do you have? And he goes, well, I have this 1 ticket, but I don't have one for my wife. And I was like, well, I have 2 tickets. And he goes, oh, and he looked at them and he goes, these are good enough. And he just handed me his ticket and walked away.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even know where it was. And I'm walking into the venue and I show it to the lady and she goes, "Oh, you're right down the middle aisle, right to the front." And then I look at the ticket.
When you
and
hit
it says
the
like
wall of the stage, turn right.
Yeah, it says like 1-1-AAA.
Yes.
Like, oh fuck, I didn't even realize how good this ticket was. I'm walking to the front and I walk past Dorian Yates.
Yes.
Move your head, Ron. I can't see.
I'm like, I have a better seat than Dorian. And then the best part, I walked past the judges.
Yep.
Sat in front of the judges' table. In the front row.
That's so
Everyone
cool,
in my
man.
row, everyone in my row had a suit on, and I'm wearing a Gasp t-shirt.
Yeah, you were.
I just
Represent.
sat there by myself. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best. Like, literally, I have the best ticket in the whole fucking room.
That's so cool.
This is fucking, I didn't even realize. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, this is fuck. Someone's going to come and ask me to leave.
Yeah. Oh, we got the wrong seat, sir.
And then I thought someone was going to come and go, you know, like, whatever the guy's name was, like, hey, this seat's for Gary.
Yeah.
You know? Right. I gave him this ticket. How come you're here? You know, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just sat there, and then I remember Branch coming out and him and Dexter doing quarter turns in front of us. Mm-hmm. And I remember having an all new appreciation for Branch's quarter turns after that, because I thought he was going to win because he was so fucking hard, like ridiculous, disgusting cement. And I just remember leaving that show, and this was like a later version of Branch too, like 2016, 2017. I can't remember what year, but I remember thinking, like, all the people that say he doesn't have good shape and genetics fucking are just crazy.
They've apparently never seen him like this.
Yeah, he out-trained his bad genetics. And I'm like, oh, no, man, from the front row, that's not what that is at all.
He maximized his phenomenal genetics, you mean?
Yeah, he maximized his ability to look like a fucking freak with a tiny waist from the side. It was awesome. So, okay. I got a few more. How you guys doing?
We're fantastic.
You doing good
Donna's
for time?
Good to go. She just told
me. Do you have another one, Scott?
I don't. I don't have any more. I pulled
Ron,
all the.
with your goods.
What is here's one, because it's Halloween week.
Yes.
We're gonna come full circle. We started with the horror movies. We're gonna go to this. What is the best Halloween costume you've ever used?
I've ever used. Never been creative my entire life.
Really?
I've never had like a really, like, you know, somebody comes in and you're like, that's the guy. Mm-hmm. He's got the thing.
Right.
Like my favorite that I have seen, and it was, the timing is everything. So it's not that it was just the costume, but it was the timing of it. Was a guy came to a Halloween party as Rex Kwon Do from Napoleon Dynamite one year, and as soon as he walked in, I lost it.
That's good.
Like, just, I mean, it was perfect, and he was even talking like it the entire time.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this guy's in character. It was flawless.
Did he have the USA pants? Did he have the USA pants?
Baggies?
Is that what he's wearing?
Going a round hit kick to the head in these bad boys.
He's just walking around doing quotes all night.
Oh God, bow to your sensei. Yeah, that was the best. Where, just like I said, it was timing was everything, because that movie came out. And I mean, he had to have been like, that's what I'm doing, and then just jumped on it. So it was flawless.
Yeah, that's funny. What about you, Scott?
I've got no like real good ones, but I can think of a guy that I work with, Adrian, who he would actually tell me, like we got him into pretty good shape at one point, and then he was like, you know, man, I don't really want to be small. Like because he's not a huge guy. He was like, I don't really care about being ripped. I just want to like look as big as I can for my Halloween costume. That's what he told me. So we literally had planned a couple years in a row, like, all right, we got to make sure that you're like really stretching your shirt out by, you know, the end of October. And he has sent me pictures where he's like invested in this stuff. Like, I don't even know what it was, but it was like this cyborg creature with like, maybe it was like a Terminator thing in the eye socket. It's not the Terminator, but it's like something else. And there's like these things that light up, and it's all like an implant on your face. and he's got like the torn t-shirt and he's looking jacked in it. It's I've seen guys who've done some incredible stuff. In fact, there's this group, this guy that I know on Facebook. He calls himself, like, I think it was like the Muscle Nerds, and he started this convention, and he's gonna kill me for not remembering the name of it, but they started like this crossover of, like, you know, Ron, you know what cosplay is, right? Where they dress up, they dress up in well, they do like this CrossFit. I don't know. It was like this. You had to be jacked, and they had like a contest where you would actually like go out there as Wolverine, and you'd like hit some poses. Yeah, right, you hit some poses, and you like, you know, do all the stuff, and they actually judged it. And and this was down in somewhere in the South, I think Georgia, but they made a whole documentary about it too. It was pretty cool. So I've seen some fitness stuff that's pretty cool. I've never done anything like that.
The cosplay stuff is, I think those people are so awesome for being so dedicated to those costumes. Like, I follow some cosplay people on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And they put like, they are amazing. Like, some of them make their own weapons.
Oh yeah.
So it looks exactly like the movie. Like, and they have like, they're unbelievable at making this stuff. And what they use to make it is pretty crazy. You know what I mean? They can turn anything into a costume. My best costume ever was an Indiana Jones costume that I went as one year, because I had a real bullwhip, and I had a fedora hat, and I had the right color shirt, and it was perfect. I looked exactly like Indiana Jones. And I won a prize for that one. The real bullwhip put him over the end. Not many people had access to a real bullwhip. Huh. But we just had one laying around on the farm, just hanging up in my dad's closet. Like, hey, can I borrow the bullwhip? And he's like, yeah, bring it back.
Sure.
Don't hit anybody with it.
With this?
Yeah. I remember all my dad said was, don't actually use it because it'll rip somebody's skin open.
Oh.
Right? Like, if you crack that whip and it hits somebody, it'll fucking split them wide open. There'll be blood everywhere. He's like, don't use the whip. He's like, those are for whipping, like, they crack loud, and if you're on the end of that when it cracks, it'll fucking hurt like a motherfucker. So he told me, just keep it. Don't let anybody go snapping it around. I might have gone outside at lunchtime and given it some cracks.
This is not a toy, Ron. This is not a toy.
Yeah. You bet. Fun times.
Here's the picture for that movie, and it's Quest of the Muscle Nerd. That's what it was called. It is really funny. It's a documentary.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they did a whole documentary on it.
Look at the He-Man. That was a good He-Man.
Yeah, there was I forget his name. It was an IFBB pro. Ron, you saw Raising the Bar. You remember Victor Del Campo, who was Dave Pulcinella's friend. Yeah. He was in the movie. He got into it. In fact, here's a picture of him right here. This is Victor in the torn shirt, getting dressed up as Wolverine.
Fantastic.
And now,
I would never let you live that down, guys.
Yeah,
yeah, and now I hate to say it, but I'm such a Halloween buzzkill now. I don't even dress up.
You could too. Like I dress up and I'd be here in my basement. You go to the gym actually, so like you could do something with it.
I'm with you, Scott.
I did go to
I look awesome in the living room.
I did go to a staff party once. I remember, when we used to go and rent costumes for the bar, because we'd go as a group, like a bunch of us would go, and we'd go down to the costume rental place. We just find whatever, you know what I mean? And I was like 300 plus. I couldn't find any fucking costumes to fit. They got all these costumes hanging up, and I'm like, none of these fit. The only thing that fit was any sort of robe-based costume.
I was gonna say, Ron has been a nun 7 times.
So I was a medieval priest, with the really tall, purple gold hat and a big robe and a giant cross around my neck.
Terrifying.
And I thought, it was
for many reasons.
Was real, very. Very, very creepy and unsettling to walk around with a giant cross hanging around my neck all night. I was waiting for it to burn me and in the
Slightly
right through my
afraid
robe.
of lightning that night, or no?
Yeah.
Slightly afraid. Slightly afraid. Okay.
That's good stuff.
Okay. That's all I got, guys.
Wait, I got something for you.
Harvey's done.
I got something for you guys. Yeah, I just thought about this. I got a Halloween costume for both of you. Hold on just a second.
Oh,
shit. I forgot all about this. I picked this up at
I bet it's a leather. I bet it's a leather jacket with
I got it for free
and
in a secondhand
and a Desert Eagle with a laser scope on it. He's a Terminator.
Here he comes.
What's up, my little Hulkamaniacs?
Perfect. Perfect.
Take your vitamins. Work out.
Say your prayers.
Say your prayers. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
22-inch pythons.
The entire episode.
So those masks, I could never do those masks. Like you had that on for 10 seconds and it was brutal.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. I got this in Ontario from a thrift store. I got it for free because Victoria looked like Brooke Shields, according to the old guy who owned the place. I couldn't pass it up. I had to take it home with me.
Oh, it's free. I'll take it. I need this.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I did that.
I always wanted to do Ultimate Warrior, but I was never in contest shape during Halloween, so it just
right
because I'm not putting those trunks on off season. There's no way.
Thank you for knowing.
So, okay. Well, thanks to everyone for all their questions. I got a whole bunch left, so I'll do those on my Instagram, just like you, Dusty. Isn't that how you do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Every time.
Okay. So remember, like, share, subscribe, comment.
Ring the bell.
There you go. And, please don't hate on us too much for anything we may or might not have said in the episode, But put them below. Put them below. There you go.
But hate as a comment because it's helpful.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So everyone, enjoy your Halloween and watch some scary movies this week. I might watch Squid Games because I heard so much about it, good and bad, which makes me curious. So I think that I'm going to watch Squid Games this week for Halloween. That's my goal. You guys got anything lined up?
No, I got to watch one. My curiosity was already answered on the Dave Chappelle thing, so we're good. Awesome. It was definitely worth watching. It was worth watching.
Yes, it was good. It was good. You know what? One comment about Chappelle. People are talking about all his Netflix specials, right? Yep. You got to go and watch the Letterman interview on Netflix because Letterman has that new show, right? My Next Guest Needs No Introduction with David Letterman.
Right.
And one of the most recent episodes is Dave Chappelle. And when you watch that interview, which I just watched last night, it's from before the latest special, right? But when you watch that interview, having watched the latest special, it just says there's so much more to Dave than people realize. Dave Chappelle he's such a decent human being and such a beast, like with how he sees the world and how he sees people. And I don't see, if you watch the Letterman interview, I don't see how anyone can not like Dave Chappelle after watching the Letterman interview. And if you don't like Dave Chappelle after watching the Letterman interview, there's something fucking wrong with you. Because he is awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, seriously, it's great. So watch the Letterman interview with Chappelle. They go to his house in Ohio. It's pretty cool. So awesome. Anyways, that's my wisdom I'm leaving you with. Thanks, everybody. Remember, it's just bodybuilding.
True Nutrition has supported our programming now for a number of years, and I'm super grateful for it because they believe in us and I believe in them. I'm sure you guys have heard of Dante Trudell. We talk about him on the shows. He had a vision of offering high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. They have a ton of different protein powders, just about every type you could think of, literally thousands of flavor combinations. Hit me up if you're interested in suggestions. They offer health supplements. I use their collagen and their fish oil. And of course, they offer performance supplements. You can get bulk EAA powder or beta-alanine. You can also get finished products like the Mountain Dog Perry MD Intra Workout. If you shop with True Nutrition and you use our code THINK, you'll get some additional savings, you'll get high-quality supplements, and you will support our programming. You can also help to support the shows through Patreon. I appreciate everybody who's made a contribution. You guys are helping to keep me pumping these podcasts out. I have links to everything in the description. Check them out. Let me know what you think, and let's get back to the program.